thing for him to make a catch like this, and they've been trying to work him in over the middle. Watch the deep.
Father, take a chance with this guy from Idaho. Jim was sold. McCarthy on the move.
Quarterback.
It's a very crafty play calls down here. Sending his hand to this time at Cora. Steps back, breaks a tackle. Touchdown, Michigan.
Michigan wins the national championship. This is interesting to see. Daily Sports Podcast, news, narratives, takes, and gambling. Got the benefit of the doubt on a couple calls in a really key moment, but that would have been a situation where Washington needed the calls and to win. And about 80% of Washington played well enough to win. It was a decent national championship, I think. I watched parts of it. Game went about as I would have thought. But the Washington quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., did not play well. He played incredibly poorly despite having a lot of opportunities, a lot of missed chances down the field. And Michigan wins, the most boring national champion of all time, with a bunch of offensive players who are mid, except for a couple of running backs and linemen. Just a weird year in college football. Not to take anything away from them, but just a weird year. This is not the same caliber of national champion we've had in the last 6 or 7 years, in my opinion, with Clemson and Bama and Georgia. Those teams were legendary. This team was good. They were good, but they would not have very many guys that were top 5 of their position in NCAA football, except for they had a corner that was really good, a D lineman that was good, 2 offensive linemen that were good. Other than that, I don't know. It's just a weird year. Weird year. Congrats to them. They're such tools. We don't hate them because it's sort of like Swifties. It's not Taylor that we hate. It's you people, just tools. Congrats to Michigan. Now Jim Harbaugh looking to the National Football League. He did say this after the game, which is really fun for everybody. We're innocent. We stood strong and tall because we knew we were innocent. I'd just like to point that out. Nobody believes you, Jim. He's headed. So here's the holding call in question. Just moments earlier, a holding call negated about a 40-yard play from Washington. We zoom here. This looks like holding. This was that big pass over the middle to the tight end. That probably should have been called if the other one had been called. Alas, it was not. So now we move forward to next year. The odds-on favorite to win the national championship next year is Georgia. This is the fun part about college football. I can just continue to piss people off. Georgia was actually the best team in the country, and there's nothing you can do to prove me wrong. They lost a random weird game because they had a stronger schedule and got unlucky. And I can just say it. Nobody can disagree with me. Like, well, yeah, but they lost to a team that Michigan beat. But this is the fun of college football. I can just say that forever. I can just say it forever. No one can stop me. No one can stop me. As far as Michigan, this team's place in history, this reminds me a lot of the 2011 Alabama team where, remember when they beat LSU 21-0 on 6 field goals or whatever that was? 5 field goals and a touchdown and a missed extra point or something. This kind of reminds me of that team. Weird year. Okay, Jimmy Kimmel has responded to Aaron Rodgers. That's the big news here. It is a 7-minute monologue, mostly about Aaron Rodgers. I think we should listen to it because it is interesting. And he kind of goes off on him. Let's hear.
Including Green Bay.
Hold on. Nope.
Here's the thing. I spent years doing sports. I've seen guys like him before. Aaron Rodgers has a very high opinion of himself because he had success on the football field. He believes himself to be an extraordinary being. He genuinely thinks that because God gave him the ability to throw a ball, he's smarter than everyone else. The idea that his brain is just average is unfathomable to him. We learned during COVID, somehow he knows more about science than scientists. A guy who went to community college, then got into Cal on a football scholarship and didn't graduate, someone who never spent a minute studying the human body, is an expert in the field of immunology. He just put on a magic helmet, and that G made him a genius. Aaron got 2 A's on his report card. They were both in the word Aaron, okay?
See, that's a funny joke. That's a joke. Accusing Jimmy Kimmel of pedophilia is not a joke. And Aaron's supposed to be on Pat McAfee today. And Pat McAfee is the one that's in hot water here because if you propagate that shit, you could be in legal trouble. And Jimmy, again, is more important to ABC than you are. So I imagine that they're going to separate soon. Pat and then eventually he'll get kicked off game day. Like, you can't, this Aaron Rodgers, licking Aaron Rodgers' taint once a week has kind of gotten old for me. I don't know. It's just not, it's also not interesting anymore. It was interesting when he was retired. Where are you going to go? Like, what are we going to hear from you? It's just not interesting anymore to me. And they're paying him to be boring now. I don't know. We had huge news in the NHL last night, and I think we're going to break it down more in depth for Controversial Wednesday, if I remember. But this guy, Cutter Gauthier, requested a trade. So he got drafted on draft night. He said, I want to be a Flyer. And the way that the NHL works is that if you get drafted, you kind of you're not forced to sign with the team. There are different things that can happen. You're not forced to sign with them. This guy got drafted, and then he was like, I want to be a Flyer. And then he said he doesn't want to play for the team that was Sidney Crosby's rival, and then he requested a trade. So the Flyers as an organization just buried him. I guess we'll get into it now. Screw it, whatever. So here is Keith Jones, who used to be a commentator on hockey. Now he is like the president or something of the Flyers. Let's listen to what he has to say after this Cutter Gauthier guy requested a trade.
He didn't want to be a Flyer. So we had to, come up with a plan, and fortunately we were able to execute on that plan. His value would never be higher than it was after the World Junior Championships. It was only going to decrease if the word got out there. I have to give a lot of credit to the people that we were negotiating with, that they kept this quiet. It could have become a much more difficult situation. So the other general managers, we were very pleased in the return that we got, a player that we coveted and were searching for in Jamie Drysdale, a right-handed shooting defenseman that was a former 6th overall pick. He's got skill, and we're looking forward to seeing him get into our lineup. It'll be an emotional time in Anaheim for him. He's an extremely popular player.
Yeah, so the quote there is, you don't want to be a Flyer, you're not going to be a Flyer, which is interesting. But let's ask John Tortorella. Hey, John, what do you have to say about Cutter Gauthier?
First part of Kevin's question, Danny said that Cutter didn't want to play here in Philadelphia and didn't want to play for the Flyers. What's your reaction to that?
Then we don't want you.
I believe you've met Cutter Gauthier before. Were you surprised that he...
I don't know Cutter from a hole in a wall, So, and I'm not too interested in talking about him. I'd rather talk about Jamie.
So they're mad. The great quote I'm looking for, I don't know if I have it recorded, but the great quote is, here it is. From Flyers Chairman and CEO Dan Hilferty. Philadelphians have long memories. Google J.D. Drew and batteries. Here he is saying it. This is hilarious.
Feel bad for Cutter when he comes to. Well, I don't really feel bad for Cutter when he comes to Philadelphia, but
It's going to be a rough ride here.
It's going to be a rough ride here, and he earned it. Because you know what? We're Philadelphians, and that's how we want people who want to be here with us.
Google J.D. Drew and batteries. They threw batteries at a J.D. Drew on the baseball field, which is not funny, but also strange. So here he is on draft night. This is like an NBA. This is a very NBA story in the NHL. I'm just fascinated by this because the rumor is that it was at this moment Gauthier realized he would be a villain on the rival team of his favorite player.
And who was your favorite player growing up?
It's got to be Sidney Crosby. Such a role model of mine growing up and how hard he's worked to get to where he is today. It's pretty cool to see. And, I saw a video of him growing up shooting pucks into the dryer, and I did that as well. Loud noises at night, loud noises early in the morning. We shoot pucks in the dryer. So he's always been my role model, and it's cool to see how well he's done.
It's weird. He just didn't want to play for the Flyers. I don't know. Very strange and kind of funny situation, I think. Into the NFL, John Gruden is under consideration as an addition to the Saints coaching staff. LOL. I can't believe they haven't fired their guy. That doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why that would be. Why they wouldn't. Saquon Barkley perhaps played his last game in New York. Quote about the franchise tag. They did it last year, so I'm numb to it. I don't have any feelings toward it at all. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't just wait. He said he's not going to do the exit interview in New York. If they want to talk to him, they know where to reach him. They're just out. So I imagine vibes are not great. Vibes are not great for the Giants. Lions Rams, the cheapest ticket right now on resale markets is over $600. That is around the same price as the national championship was last night. Stafford at Detroit. Is this the biggest wild card game of all time? It legitimately could be in terms of storylines and weirdness, and it could be. I off the top of my head, I can't remember a bigger one than this. Controversial Wednesday tomorrow. I have perhaps a false accusation of some misconduct. We'll look into it. Not 100% sure. The Panthers fired their GM. They suck so bad. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive and defensive coordinators, the hottest name in coaching right now. We'll see what happens with Jim Harbaugh. My opinion is that's going to be a disaster, but it will be entertaining and funny nonetheless. All right, back and better than ever tomorrow.